And now we watch Michael the Brave Part 2 by HistoryMarche.
Despite his stunning victory at Kalugureni, the outnumbered Mihai retreats north, unable to stop Sinan Pasha's advance. The two capitals fall just 3 days after the battle. Lahia, which had produced so much resistance under Mihai the Brave, looks destined to become an Ottoman province. Today's video is sponsored by NordVPN. During centuries of Ottoman domination, Vlahia continued its existence as a political entity through careful management of relations with Constantinople. Vlahian nobility usually avoided an overly aggressive stance towards the Ottoman Empire. In most cases, the voivodes accepted the suzerainty of the Sultan and sought good relations by paying tribute and bribing important officials. But Vlahian voivodes have equally shown that occupying their lands would be met with harsh resistance. And since the principality lacked valuable natural resources, like gold or silver, from the Ottoman perspective, it was more profitable to keep Vlahia as a tax farm than to engage in costly wars and occupation. And, if not overtaxed, as was the case in the years before Mihai's revolt, Vlahia was generally peaceful. And for the Vlahian nobility, the pro-Ottoman policies were a legitimate way to maintain their rule and keep the country free from total occupation, even if vassalized and forced to pay high tributes. But over the centuries, some Vlahian voivodes broke these norms and aggressively sought independence for their people. Mihai was one of them. The Vlahian revolt he led caused a significant disruption to Ottoman lines of communication along the Danube for their main theatre of war against the Holy League in Hungary. As a result, Constantinople moved to dismantle and annex Vlahia in order to fully secure the logistically vital Danube line. Unaffected by the tactical defeat at Kalugureni, the Ottomans were able to replace their losses and start incorporating Vlahia into the empire. The initial military takeover is swift, as nearly all towns have neither castles nor stone walls. By late August, Ottoman officials are already put in charge over large parts of the country. However, by September, Sinan's preparations for permanent occupation are not going well. The Akinji raiders are plundering and ravaging the country, leading to fierce local resistance and widespread instability.
Yeah, if you're gonna integrate something into your empire, you might want to at least try to treat them well. You know, I think we could learn from Rome about that. Like, Rome, when it integrated like a conquered territory, was really great at that. You know, letting certain places keep its like religion, etc., Roman citizenship, really trying to make them feel like, okay, you're a part of us now, you know, you're not just under our thumb. And this isn't good. Sinan, like, obviously he lost the last battle, but like that loss doesn't, I mean, I wouldn't say it doesn't matter, but like obviously Mihail couldn't completely keep capitalizing on it, and you can keep replenishing your manpower, so it's just a matter of time kind of situation. So, but now you're just not enduring yourself when this is arguably the point where you want to, you know, like Mihail made some tactical errors in that, you know, higher taxation than normal under the Ottomans, you know, basically almost like I said, like really straining the economy of Wallachia just for this war for his mercenary army. This is where you could like start like advertising yourself as the better alternative, right? Like ideally, but instead it seems like you're kind of screwing it up now.
Rebels clash and defeat several groups of Akinji forces, most notable of which is the massacre of 5,000 raiders near Buzău. Despite these setbacks, it is only a matter of time before the Ottomans have Lahia firmly in their grip. Having retreated to the Bran Pass, Mihai knows that he needs a second victory to inflict enough losses on the Ottomans if he is to discourage further attacks on Vlahia and maybe seek a political compromise. But in the weeks following the Battle of Kalugareni, many Vlahian peasants leave his army to defend their homes from Akinji attacks. This significantly weakens his ranks. In addition, the fall of Bucharest and Târgoviște is an indication to the nobility that Mihai had lost the war. Thus, many nobles east of the Alt River see no reason to follow him anymore, and they too withdraw their troops. However, he still enjoys significant support from the nobility in Oltenia, his power base. To make matters worse, despite being immensely wealthy, bankrolling so many mercenaries depleted his funds, and he finds it increasingly difficult to pay for their services. Some leave his army to look for employment elsewhere.
Oh my goodness. Yo, all that effort for that army, and now it's like depleting. Oh my goodness, Mihai, dude. You need support bad. This is bad.
But others stay, as finding well-paid employment in the region isn't that easy. Because the market is flooded with cheap manpower after the destruction of the countryside and the abandonment of many towns, as well as the ending of the harvest season, left many looking for work. As a result of all these factors, Mihai's army is down to 8,000 men, and the Transylvanian reinforcements can't come soon enough. However, while Vlahia is being pillaged, Sigismund decides to get married before marching south. By forcing Mihai to wait until his wedding is over, Sigismund, perhaps, wants to show who's in charge.
Oh my goodness, he's trying to pull off a power move right now. Like, he's basically already pledged, like, he said last video that he essentially is a vassal for Sigmund because he wanted to support. Like, Sigmund, you already, like, have Wallachia and Mihai. Like, oh my goodness. Like, instead, you're gonna need good support, because I'm wondering this is gonna be Vlad the Impaler Part 2, where Vlad was doing well against the Ottomans, but the biggest problem is that no one wanted to help him or support him, so he was essentially left to dry. I'm wondering if history is about to repeat with Mihai, like, you know.
But by October, the Transylvanian voivode finally arrives with his army. Help also comes from Moldavia. Stephen Razafan, a highly competent military leader and voivode who is very popular among his men, arrives with his contingent. The three voivodes waste no time. Their combined army numbers around 32,000 men and 100 cannons. It is agreed that Mihai devise a plan for a swift advance, aiming to attack Sinan's position before he can...
Okay, now what I'm worrying about is that Mihai is now with Sigmund, and Sigmund wants to prove he's in charge. Now I'm wondering if there's gonna be disunity up between the three. If Sigmund is gonna be like, no, I have the bigger army, therefore I'm going to call the shots. Like, now he has to worry about the ego of, like, Sigmund. Yeah, I see there could be other issues, so I'm a little worried for Mihai right now, because he's the one who needs these guys the most.
Can fully organize his army. At this time, Sinan has up to 40,000 combat troops at his disposal, while the rest are dispersed across Vlahia. Armies of the three voivodes advance on Târgoviște. With 40 cannons, the Ottoman garrison offers stiff resistance. Over the next 2 days, much of the town is engulfed in flames during an intense artillery battle. The Ottoman garrison finally retreats, fearing that their storage of gunpowder could explode. But most are eventually killed in the burning city or taken prisoner. All 40 cannons, as well as many supplies and weapons, are taken by the advancing army. Ottoman soldiers that managed to escape report back to Bucharest. Upon learning of the approaching army, Sinan decides to retreat south across the Danube and regroup. Not wanting to leave anything for the advancing enemy, the Ottomans sack and burn Bucharest and blow up the wooden fortifications. He reasons that it would be risky to go against an army of that size, which includes a very strong contingent of heavy cavalry, professional infantry, armed with arquebuses and pistols, and nearly 150 artillery pieces. The retreating column is hastily organized. Sinan places himself in the front, along with his advisors, high-ranking officers, and the most valuable troops. The center of the column is rather mixed, while the Akinjis, who are usually fast and agile-moving, form the rear due to being weighed down by plunder and slowed by thousands of slaves that they captured over the past several weeks of raiding. In order to catch the fleeing Ottomans, the 3 Romanian voivodes pass by Bucharest, sending only a small Moldavian contingent to enter the city and continue marching on the road to Calugăreni and Giurgiu. The two armies finally sight each other. While the Ottomans are crossing the pontoon bridge over the Danube, the 3 Romanian voivodes appear to the north of Giurgiu. Even before the rest of the column has arrived, the quick-thinking Mihai is the first to attack.
We gotta streamline these ideas. We need Grammarly.
I've got your back.
Attacking them while they're crossing seems like this seems good that Mihai's taking the initiative, because attacking them before they fully cross just seems like an opportune time, right? To take out parts of the enemy. Seems good to me.
Seeing the Ottomans are focused on crossing the river and haven't formed a consistent battle formation, he seizes the initiative and personally leads the charge, urging his men forward. He doesn't want to give the enemy any time to fully form their battle line. The Ottomans amass their plunder and carts to form a barricade in order to slow down the Wallachian charge. Mihai's contingent goes around and over the obstacles and clashes with the Ottoman center and right flank. Sinan's troops on the bridge have no room to maneuver their way back into the battle and can only keep moving forwards across the river. Meanwhile, Transylvanian arquebus infantrymen form up in front of the Ottoman left and begin firing at will. Many are immediately cut down in a hail of bullets. In the center, the Ottoman barricades locked Mihai in a bitter fight against the Akinji cavalry. Nevertheless, the Wallachians slowly push towards the river. Further back, Transylvanian and Wallachian cannons are brought into position, and they open fire on the retreating army. As Sinan and his most valuable troops cross to the other side, the bridge behind them catches fire. Engulfed in flames, many soldiers jump into the river. Minutes later, the damaged bridge collapses, taking with it the unfortunate soldiers, horses, and pack animals. Most of them drown in the Danube's strong currents. Across the river, the Akinjis and many others are now cut off, unwilling to let go of the plunder and slaves they had captured, which are slowing them down. In the chaos, some of the horsemen are still trying to retreat across the river, unaware that the bridge had collapsed. By now, they are heavily outnumbered and quickly start suffering massive casualties. After hours...
Yo, Sinman, you got... Oh man, dude, like... I get his logic of like, you don't want to fight the combined armies, but in a way you kind of like almost screwed yourself even more through this, because they caught you here. And now you're gonna lose a large part of your force. Like, well, I don't know how much of his force he's actually losing, but that's still losses. Like, that's... Oh my goodness.
Hours of fighting, the Ottomans lost about 3,000 men, while another several thousand were wounded. 6,000 slaves are freed, 150 camels, as well as much of the supplies, weapons, and artillery, are left behind. Mihai got his victory. The Battle of Giurgiu marked the end of the Ottoman ambition to transform Wallachia into an Ottoman province. Moreover, the battle impacted the fate of the Akinjis as a military institution. The famous horsemen, who had the mission to plunder and weaken enemy territories, were already in decline by the late 16th century. But after the Battle of Giurgiu, their operations became minimal, as the style of warfare across Europe began to change. But it's important to note that just as the Akinjis raided Christian lands during peacetime, so too did Christian forces raid Ottoman lands. These raids did not break peace agreements and were practiced by both sides almost every year. This is why the populace that lived in affected areas hated these raiders. And on the battlefield at Giurgiu, most of the Vlachian, Moldovan and Transylvanian troops were born and raised in areas that were ravaged by the Akinjis. Needless to say, they hated them and therefore massacred them all, renouncing any ransom. Finally, after hours of fighting, the bridge was cleared and some of the Ottoman troops retreated to the castle of Giurgiu, which was attacked on October 19th with 12 cannons of the Toscan artillerymen that were brought closer to the shore. Ottoman ships tried to intervene to stop the bombardment, but were prevented by the Vlachian and Transylvanian artillery. 2 ships were eventually sunk. The Ottoman garrison in the castle made a brave last stand, staving off several assaults while under heavy bombardment.
Dude, the Ottomans got clapped so hard. Like, this is just a complete disaster, man. Like, 3,000 men lost, a lot of their gains lost, 2 ships, oh my goodness, just a complete PR nightmare.
But after hours of fighting, their numbers dwindled, and the castle eventually fell 1 day later. After the battle, Sinan began planning a general invasion of Lahia to massacre and displace the population as punishment for their resistance. From a military standpoint, this was a reasonable and effective measure, which was successfully implemented in other problematic regions as well. But Sinan never got the chance to execute his plans. His retreat from Vlahia was regarded as shameful. The man who had masterminded so many victories in Hungary against the Holy League was stripped of his position as Grand Vizier. Across the Danube, Sigismund fulfilled his duty of providing support to Mihai and retreated to Transylvania to avoid keeping his army in the field when the snow falls, as mercenaries and vassals demanded more payment during the winter. Razvan returned to Moldavia, but during his absence, Polish noblemen brought the pro-Ottoman pretender Jeremiah Avila to the throne. Razvan fought to regain the throne, but was defeated.
Oh, that's not good. Okay, I'm surprised Sigmund, other than that whole keeping him waiting with his marriage thing, he for the most part actually really did help right there, you know? And they managed to get rid of the mastermind Sinan, you know, so that's also a huge victory, because if Sinan had returned with an even bigger force, I think that might have been it. So thank goodness that he got sacked by the Ottomans, so that winning that battle probably helped out more. But now here's the problem. Now, if the Ottomans send someone else, who is Mihai gonna... Is he gonna call him Sigmund again? And will even Sigmund help? Mihai needs to actually assemble a stable army now. And, like, protect his own land. And also here now, at Moldavia... Now they got, what, an Ottoman supporter here, so now that's a completely... Oh no. I can see some bad things happening.
With Jeremiah recognized by the Sultan, Mihai became threatened by a potential Moldavian military intervention. Conflict seemed inevitable, and the war with the Ottomans also continued. But Vlahia was mostly in ruins. Many peasants fled, leaving some areas depopulated. Towns suffered massive damage. This made the collection of taxes very difficult, which further worsened Mihai's financial situation.
Yeah, the already bad economic situation isn't gonna be made good. Like, Mihai is... The odds are stacking completely against him now. Like, dude, what are you gonna do? How could you overcome this?
In order to start rebuilding the economy, the fortress of Brela was attacked and conquered. As one of the most important ports on the Danube, Brela immediately alleviated some of Mihai's financial problems thanks to the highly valuable commercial taxation. In addition, by controlling Brela, Mihai gained a strategically important position against Moldavia. He could attack and then retreat to the fortress, while Moldavia had no fortresses in the south of the country. All of them were dismantled on the orders of the Sultan. Ottomans responded by sending Tatar raiders into Vlahia to attack Târgoviște. Although they had the element of surprise, the Tatars only had a narrow corridor to go through, and their movement was easy to predict. Mihai intercepted and destroyed their army. Meanwhile, another operation was launched in the west to take the fortress of Vidin, while Mihai marched south to conquer the fortress of Nicopolis. During spring, Mihai had to dismiss many of his mercenaries, as he couldn't pay them due to a lack of taxes and insufficient plunder, and he began relying on Serbian and Bulgarian haiduks to bolster his ranks. Operations across all of northern Bulgaria continued throughout the summer of 1596, causing massive economic damage. Another Tatar army was ordered to pass through Vlahia and join the Ottoman army in Hungary. The Tatars sacked Buzău, Gergita and Bucharest, but were defeated and chased over the Danube into Dobruja. Meanwhile, Mehmed III dealt a massive defeat to a combined Austrian and Transylvanian army in the Battle of Mezőkeresztes. Two more Transylvanian attacks were repelled on the fortress of Lipova and Timișoara, which were key for controlling the Banat region. Shaken by these defeats, Austria and Transylvania looked to negotiate a truce. The break in hostilities opened up a possibility for a major Ottoman invasion of Vlahia, and Mihai scrambled to get more troops to...
Oh, dude, that sucks. First of all, Moldavia is now an enemy. The Holy League, Austria and Transylvania got their butts kicked and they want peace. Dude, that sucks. Well, he's basically on his own. Oh man, dude. He is really good. The thing is, it's like with Vlad the Impaler, who was also very good at fighting the Ottomans. Eventually, with little to no manpower and support, it's like, there's nothing you can do. Like, how can Mihai overcome these odds which are so stacked against him? Like, how is this gonna end? Can he even win? Like, oh man.
Prepare for a possible attack. To raise funds for new troops, Mihai introduced dreadfully harsh measures. He essentially enslaved his own population by forbidding all classes of serfs from leaving the estates on which they worked. This gave the boyars immense power over the serfs that worked their land, and they imposed taxes higher than ever on the peasants in order to make the high payments to the voivode. These measures may have been a pragmatic way to defend Vlahia, but they squeezed the life out of the country's poorest people. And although Mihai's reputation was high because of his spectacular victories against the Ottomans, these measures diminished his popularity among his people. And in addition to heavily taxing his people, the voivode sent a delegation to Rudolf II, asking him to pay for 4,000 mercenaries from imperial coffers to help fight the Ottomans. The emperor agreed, seeing this as an opportunity to take away some of the pressure from Austria and shift the fighting into Vlahia and northern Bulgaria. Another hope was that Mihai would be able to push back the Ottomans and motivate Bulgarians, Serbians and Albanians to revolt. Mihai now had a standing army of around 13,000 fighting men, and he resumed his attacks all along the Danube. The devastation of the countryside, roads and infrastructure was so severe that the bigger towns and cities in northern Bulgaria became completely isolated and cut off from the rest of the empire. Furthermore, he transported some 16,000 Christian Bulgarian peasants into Vlahia, whom he provided with land, aiming to increase his tax base. But in his rear, Voivode Jeremiah and his nobles were planning to overthrow and replace him with a pretender by the name of Simon, Jeremiah's younger brother. To make matters worse, Sigismund abdicated the Transylvanian throne due to many internal and external problems. Mihai made another proposition to Rudolf II, the unification of Transylvania and Vlahia under Mihai's rule, in order to continue the war against the Ottomans with the help of Transylvania's resources. Rudolf refused and began planning to seize Transylvania for himself.
Yeah, I get that sucks. Like, Mihai wanted that for sure for himself, right? Increase his strength. Like, he could use that. Instantly becomes a threat, but yeah, Austria's like, no, let's just take it for ourselves. Oh, dang, that sucks. That sucks. That Mihai, he's in a really bad situation right now, I feel. He's doing great, but, like, I'm worried about how sustainable this really is, you know? He's kind of on his own. And, like, freaking Sigmund, man. dude, like, man.
Surrounded on all sides, Mihai was forced to seek peace with the Ottomans. He took advantage of his successes on the battlefield and the mass destruction he caused in Bulgaria to gain favorable terms. He kept the fortresses on the Danube and was recognized by the Sultan as the ruler of Vlahia. The Vlahian voivode was now free to deal with his Christian enemies.
Okay, wow, he actually managed to secure peace. I'm surprised. I thought the Ottomans were going to be like, no, not till you're gone for everything you've done. But no, like, apparently the Ottomans were like, sure, we'll have peace with you, why not? So, which is funny, because this all started because he wanted to fight the Ottomans. Now he has to worry about everything else. It's like, what's he going to do? Like, absorb? Well, I don't know if anyone else would be cool with it. Now he's fighting Christians, which is funny, you know?
In order to secure his country. Speaking of security, in today's times, our online activity...
Okay, so the video's done as if Mihai hired many Serbian. They were guerrilla troops who fled their home regions to become resistance fighters. Yeah, the Christians are fighting amongst each other because of the Polish interference in Moldavia and Austria, trying to take... Yeah, the Christians are falling apart. The Holy League, at the Battle of... losses. Oh my goodness, 50,000. Dude, no wonder they wanted peace. Like, that's an awful loss. Alright guys, I'm invested. I'm trying to binge watch all of this all in one go. So we're gonna jump to part 3 now. I'll see you tomorrow in part 3.